And Education Service to enforce strict hair grooming rules in senior high schools. A directive that has generated significant public discussion. So since that pronouncement, the conversation hasn't stopped. Some have praised the minister's stand, saying it's about maintaining discipline, unity, and focus on school. Others, however, believe it is a backward approach. One that policies appearance instead of nurturing individuality and creativity. You know that the reactions have come in thick and fast from parents, students, old boys and girls, educators, lawyers, and even the clergy, all questioning where discipline ends and asking where freedom begins. This morning, we're asking, is it really about discipline? Does it really matter? Is it about control? Does it really matter? Does the length of a student's hair determine the strength of their character and the sharpness of their minds? In a world that is celebrating diversity and expression, should Ghana schools be holding on to haircut rules that maybe be tracing back to colonial times? Or do we need to sacrifice that on the altar of discipline? Because there's the concern that when these students go to the schools with hairs like that, the attention of the students will shift to taking care of their hair and not pay much attention to what they are in school for. It's all on the table this morning for our big conversation this morning. I'll be joined by the Ghana Education Service. Some educators will also be joining us this morning. But in the studio with me is Richard Kwashikove. He is the Executive Director, Campaign Against Commercialization and Privatization of Education. He's here to help us make sense of the conversation ongoing on social media following the comments by the Education Minister. Be reminded that this is not the only time that this conversation has happened. A few years ago, you remember the Achimota School? Yeah, Tyrone Magai. He was in the thick of the conversation. Well, let's get deep into the conversation, starting with Richard Kwashikove. Mr. Kove, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome.
Thank you, too.
Good morning to you. If you could speak up a little bit for me, I'd appreciate it.
Good morning.
Nice. We're talking about haircut debate right now. Are we missing a deeper issue here that our education system still treats students as subjects and not as stakeholders?
Yeah, so good morning to your cherished viewers, listeners this morning. Yeah, so the discussion about hairstyle, if you look at it in totality and the school culture, school discipline, school, or anything that has to do with teaching and learning, I think it's not just about haircuts, but the school is a community on its own. Mm-hmm. And every community have its own rules and regulations and cultural identity.
That's true.
And so if you want to look at the discussion on the face of, it is not the hair that is coming to learn. It is the individual. And so it doesn't matter how the person dress or the kind of hair the person, style the person has, it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. Then in the school, within the school system, we, the educationists, within the school system, what we normally look at is what is fair for everybody. Mm-hmm. So that there are certain things that I personally may want to do, but then for fairness and then the image and then the kind of pressure to put on the distraction to give to other people, you will want to prevent that so that you look at what is neutral, what is everybody can afford. Mm-hmm. And so let's take the conversation about the hairstyle, which is generating the debates. For example, if we want to open the floodgate for people to do what they want and how they want to dress to school, definitely then there's no need for any uniform in schools.
That's where we would get to eventually.
Very good. So there's no need for Achimota to say you must dress in this particular uniform before you come to school.
Okay.
There's no need for the fact that students must put on shoes before they come to class. They should even put on dress. They can decide to come to class naked because that is how they feel like dressing that much.
Is that not a little bit extreme? I mean, are we not moving away from the substantive conversation to looking at appearance now?
So appearance should go with identity. Why would schools want their learners? And it even goes beyond the school system. Every corporate organization has a dress code. and how they want their employees appear at the workplace, which gives them a brand, an identity. And so it is from this background that those of us within the education system will feel if certain privileges are granted at this very moment, because we have the case of the Tyrone Magai issue that went to courts. Unfortunately, he was given the opportunity to.
Unfortunately?
Yes, unfortunately.
How should that be?
When it happens like that, that is why this conversation this time around is we are having this conversation. If the rule has been applied strictly, today we will not be having this conversation. And so when we don't put, in the first place, the minister, we are siding with the minister in this particular discussion because if we come to the matter of law freedom, I'm sure the minister knows much about that because he's a lawyer for so many years, and then he knows what the rights and all freedom of citizens goes into it. What goes into it, and so we should be having a conversation about how would a student, what will make a student different from any other person, and that is why we have dress code. The dress code goes with your appearance. And so if we allow our girls to come to school in a braided and different hairstyles, the attention of the learner will shift from the focus of coming to school to fashion. So that is where the minister is also looking at. And then we also start the thing because we know that the adolescent that we are dealing with, and then the fashion trend that is all over on social media. You open that floodgates, we'll begin to complain again that now we have lost everything to the listen. Because somebody may not, they have to, it goes, you can't come to free education that, you can't come to a school which is free with the intention that your parents don't have money, but they can afford Brazilian hair for you to dress in a style and come to school.
We'll get back to you on this subject because, anyways. But let's introduce Dr. Peter Patianti, the Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies. He's also joining us to throw more light from his perspectives on the conversation. Dr. Anti, thank you. Dr. Pati, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you. Let's begin here. Why is a child's haircut still such or so much of a big deal in Ghana's education system in 2025? My question will mean, what educational principles does it serve?
Good morning to you, and good morning to your listeners, and good morning to my colleagues in the studio. Well, I think in 2025, in a country like Ghana, in the global south, there are things that we should be very much interested in. Things like AI in education, technology in education, improving learning outcomes, getting more people into school, making sure that teaching quality is up, providing infrastructure and other things. So when the whole country is thrown into discussing hairstyles, haircuts, in times like this, it worries me, and I'm being very frank. It worries me. More importantly, when this issue about a year ago had resurfaced, and we had an extensive discussion to the extent that the courts of Ghana made a determination on it. And then in just about the following year, we are back to the same issue, and we are discussing it. I think it casts a certain kind of a light on we as a people, and for me it is very worrying because we should not continue to pay attention to some of these things that technically do not have a lot of influence on the delivery of quality education to the people of Ghana. The children sitting on stones, the children lying on their belly to write and do other things do not benefit from a pronouncement by educational leaders on the hairstyle of a student and all that. I'm not downplaying the fact that the appearance of a student in any institution should conform to the laws of that particular institution. I'm not downplaying the fact that the issue that we had last year was about somebody's religion and what the exhibition of that religion comes with, and that is what the court agreed and decided on, that you cannot prevent somebody from, admitting somebody into your institution based on his practice of his religion, and which includes the style that the person comes out with. I don't know the situation with the current lady. I don't know whether the lady insisted that she's keeping that hair because of a particular religion or belief system. So if that argument has not been put up there, what are we talking about? What are we discussing? Because the only thing that prevented, that made the Achimota guy won his issue was that I'm keeping my hair because of my religion. Is this girl saying the same thing? Is that the basis upon which this girl's hair was cut? What was the reason for the girl keeping her hair entering into an educational institution that had its rules and regulations? So if the person is not saying that she's being dealt with based on her religion, which the court has pronounced on, what are we worrying ourselves about? What are we discussing?
But Ms. Ante, even if the lady's situation right now is not about religion, shouldn't we be encouraging individuality and critical thinking and the proper impact of the education? We don't have any link or empirical evidence to the appearance of a student to the student disciplinary levels or educational prowess in the schools, do we?
We have a standard of practice in our senior high schools, which is documented. When you apply to attend or to seek admission in any institution, that institution comes with its rules and regulations, and you are supposed to abide by it, or if you want to depart, then you would want to decline admission and move to a place where you think that you can practice what you want to practice. Of course, we are not saying that we are going to leave the system open for anything to go into the system, because we think that it doesn't really affect your education, or it doesn't really affect your academic work. I don't think that is what we are discussing. Teachers in this country, when they are being trained, you go to the training colleges, they are taught they are supposed to keep a certain kind of hairstyle. They wear uniform. I've got chance to talk about it because they are tertiary institutions. But they are supposed to abide by that because you are in a training institution. If you come to most of our tertiary institutions, those doing medicine, there's a way that they dress. Okay, recently we had a situation at UPSA. So institutions have their rules and regulations, and so far as they do not infringe on the personal liberties and rights of the individual, those regulations should be upheld. And that is why I think that what is the basis upon which the individual would want to keep the hair within that institution, where the institution clearly has said that if you are entering this particular level of education, you have a certain kind of hairstyle that you are supposed to keep. So it is not religion, which has been pronounced by the court. That person should also let us know the reason why he or she would want to keep the hair. And then the court of Ghana would pronounce on it. But so then, can we abide by the rules set by the institution so that we do not have a situation whereby everybody will start keeping or bringing up so many things into. So what would you do when somebody says that, okay, me too, I don't want to wear the uniform, I want to wear this to school, it's my right. And then another person will come and say that, oh, me too, I want to go to the school naked, it's my right. And another person will come and say that, oh, me too, when I'm going to school, I don't want to wear shoes, I want to wear barefooted. What kind of society are we creating? Unregulated?
Zante, hold your horses for me and Mr. Covey. So how should we approach grooming rules in the schools now?
So these rules already are there in the schools, and so every school has its own standard of dressing. Mm-hmm. That's why every school has a particular uniform. Yes. And that was all senior high schools, you have the same color. Mm-hmm. But if you go to primary college, they have their color, the uniform that they wear. And so just as my senior colleague said, Every school has own specific rules and regulations. In the recent past, due to some disciplinary issues going on in the various schools, GES came up with a unified code of conduct for students, which really applies to every school in the country, irrespective of where you find yourself. And so going forward, those are the things that we need to entrench. Now the question, apart from what my colleague said, the other question too is, after cutting her hair, she will look more beautiful than the other one, and does it really affect her education? She can still go to class and learn. Is it of a medical condition that if you cut the hair, probably ABC will happen to you? So those are the conditions under which probably the school may want to reconsider this. But if it's not on medical grounds, if it's not on extreme religious grounds, then definitely there should be a uniform way of doing it, so that it doesn't also generate some kind of competition among the learners. Who dress best? Whose hairstyle is the best?
But there are private schools in the country that allow for these things. The concerns you're raising right now, do we see them happening in the private schools?
Yeah, so that is, if you look at the category of students who attend private schools, they are from certain class of society. So when the competition comes, they are up to the task.
Does that competition exist in the private schools?
Of course. Because these children are within their formative years, and they are now learning, they're imitating, they watch all kind of things. So the moment she comes home and feel like the hairstyle of the colleague looks better than her, it's going to put pressure on the parent to restart her hair. So, but when you come to the public school system and you go to senior high school, we don't have a much of the private senior high schools where most of these people who feel like having the fashion sense who want to go, and so they come to the public system. And within the public system, some parents even hardly buy the prospectus.
Okay.
And so when they come and they meet their colleagues now with that kind of this, definitely they are going to introduce them to all kind of things. They also have to find a way to live like their colleagues. And where is it going to take us to? And so these are some of the things. So within the school system, we want to consider those who cannot afford certain lifestyle.
And make the playing field level for everybody.
Very good.
Ms. Ante, if you're still with me, the concerns that you are raising that this lady could have, or the situation could cause when she goes to school with the hair, there are private schools in the country that allow for diversity, for individuality, if you like. Do we have these concerns coming up in the private schools? Does it affect anything in the private schools? Let's start with that.
My brother, you see, when I was talking, I didn't try to look at the academic papers that link hairstyle to academic performance, because the evidence is varied. There's no conclusive determination in literature.
Exactly.
That one's academic hair would affect his performance, or one's academic hair will not affect his or her performance. So I wouldn't want to go there. I want to stay within the sociological framework of discussing some of these policies. Now, when you talk about private schools, and that is why I said every school has got their rules, right? So if I feel that I want to keep my hair, and because of that, I don't want to go to school and then cut my hair. I moved to a private institution which would allow me to keep my hair, because those people there have rules that give them the opportunity or the ability to keep their hair. We are talking about working within a certain framework of rules and regulations. Now, I am supposed to go to a public school that's got rules and regulations. I should not, and I cannot say that I should be given the opportunity to do something that I've been told that it's prohibited, simply because I want to promote my individuality and so on and so forth. What is the basis upon which I want to keep the hair? Is it, as my brother in the studio, is it medical? Is it religion? We have not been able to establish this. So upon what basis are we asking the lady to be the exemption out of the norm that is practiced in the school? That is my point I'm making. So if it's a private school, I don't think we'll be even discussing this, because they keep their hair. Even at the basic level, the kids are allowed to keep their hair. They go to school, right? And nobody's complaining about it. But when the school then decides that in this institution, in this educational framework, We do not want the kids to keep their hair. That becomes the rule.
Okay, so
if you want to be exempted, you should have a basis. So what is the basis of the lady? That is the point I'm asking. I think nobody has been able to even answer this question. What is the basis upon which the lady is insisting, or the family, or whoever it is insisting on keeping the hair? Is it medical? Is it religion? We don't know, and we want to continue to preach diversity within our public secondary school system. Do you know what we are calling for?
So the rules are there already, like you're talking about, regulating how the students should behave or should look when they go to school. If these cases keep coming up, and this will not be the last time a situation like this will happen. The last time was on the basis of religion. This we do not know. Subsequently, other people would come up with different reasons why they should be allowed to do these things. Should we not begin to relook at this, if you like, blanket rule that is governing the public schools, that is making us have conversations like this, so that in the near future, if a student pops up with a particular reason why he has to do this or do that for the particular school, then we go into the rule book and see what exemptions are in the book that can allow for something like this to go on.
Well, I don't think it's a blanket rule. I think that now we know that if I'm going to school and I'm keeping a certain hairstyle and I'm denied admission and I say that it's because of religion, that school, by the laws of Ghana, as ruled in our court, should give me the opportunity, or should allow me to enter the school with that kind of hair. That is well established. So that is an exemption. And I know that in our system, if it is medical reasons and you have a medical report, even at the tertiary level or whatever institution that you are in, if you have a medical report that gives you an exemption to a particular kind of rule, you are given that opportunity to be exempted. It is standard practice everywhere. But where you don't have any reason, where you think that it is because I am called Kofi and I have a big stomach, so let me come into this school with my own hairstyle, with earrings all over my ears and with a piercing in my nose because I am called Kofi. No, we are not going to allow that, and no school would admit you on that basis. So it is not blanket. Where you have justifiable reasons, the school and the authorities in our education system are reasonable. They would look at it and then address the situation as it comes. But where you don't have any reason, but you feel that you want to be different, I'm sorry, I don't think the school rules would permit you to be different just because you want to be different. We should keep some level of uniformity,
right.
And I think that is what we are all promoting.
And Doc, I'll introduce into the conversation the head of the public relations unit at the Ghana Education Service, Daniel Fenny, is also joining us on the lines for this conversation. But before we speak to Daniel Fenny, and briefly, Doc, you were talking about the reasons and how the school will be logical enough. But did we see that in the case of Taran Mangai? He had to go to court for him to have his rights respected. There are students who may not have the wherewithal, the power to go to court and insist on their rights, even though they may have, in your words, valid reasons or reasonable reasons for doing that.
So that case, we were not open to that room where people will keep that kind of hair based on their religion. Okay, and that is why the decision by the gentleman and the family was up. Even that decision, the Attorney General said, and I think I think they said they would appeal it. I don't know how far it got to, but they said they would appeal it. But as it stands now, that is the ruling of the court. So the point is that if you think that you have a reason and your reason is potent enough and that you are being your rights are being infringed on, let's move to the court. But don't let us use our own discretion and say that it is me, and because I want to be different, let me keep this without any basis or at all. This is the point I'm trying to make.
Right. Dr. Pate, please.
We should get regulations so that we don't need people to live their lives just like that.
Thank you. Please don't leave me yet. Let me bring into the conversation Daniel Fenny, the head of the Public Relations Unit of the GS. Mr. Fenny, thank you. Thank you so much for holding on for us. This is the conversation we're having. But from the GS, one of the major stakeholders in this conversation, talk to us. What is permissible under your laws or in your laws and what is not? What does your rule say when it comes to conversations like this?
All right, sir. Let me thank you very much, and let me, even before getting into the substance of the question, let me quickly say that I align perfectly with everything Dr. Pate has said, and I am happy. These are teachers, and so they are in the classroom, they are in the lecture hall. And so they understand the issues even deeper than some of our commentators who are not in the classroom. It looks quite simple. Oh, just allow them to braid their hair. And then they say it's simply like that. But if you get into it, it is not that simple like people seem to say. Now, let me indicate from the Ghana Education Service, our principle is that students, right, are supposed to be uniformed when they come to school. And so they should be in the same or uniformed hairstyle, fingernails, dress they wear, the time they report to school, the time they close from school. If it is a boarding facility, the time they eat, the time they go for preps, and all that. So the position of the Ghana Education Service generally is that in the school environment, there is uniformity, full stop. Now, let me give a little logic behind this. The Ghana Education Service, as you rightly said, we are one of the major stakeholders in this conversation. And we are a major stakeholder because we currently manage about 10 million of Ghanaians, right? And these are school-going children from KG to the senior high school level. We manage them. And we believe that all these children are coming from different homes, different religious backgrounds, different financial backgrounds, different social statuses, different religious beliefs, different cultural beliefs, and generally different orientations. We believe that when these children are coming from all these walks of life, from these different environments, and they get to the school gates, they should drop all those individualities and assume the uniformity of the school. And this principle is to protect the children themselves, not the teachers, right? Why do I think it's protect the children themselves? If we should allow every child from the different backgrounds to enter the school premises, engage in school activities with their personal preferences and personal tastes and likes from their personal backgrounds and all that, I tell you, the academic activity, for which reason they are in school, will even become a secondary matter. At a point, if we are not careful, the food they eat will now take over the discussion that they put on, the hairstyle they put on, the cars that came to drop them in school will now become the major issues for discussion. You know why? This morning, look at us, spending very quality time. And instead of discussing curriculum, the school activities, the Form 1s reported to school just last week. Instead of us to discuss what have they started learning, how is the classes ongoing, see us discussing hairstyles. I am telling you that if we allow this culture to perpetuate, and eventually, and this is just one girl whose hairstyle has become a sensation, and so we are discussing. Imagine later we approve different hairstyles in school, and now we have about 6 million girls having different hairstyles. if you are not careful, we will push academic business to the under the carpet and now begin to discuss fashion. So the conversation is deeper than people think. You allow one, right? The next time you are forced to allow 20. The next time you are even forced to allow not only the dress, but the length of the girls' skirts and their uniform. Should it be above their knee or below their knee? Somebody will say, you are infringing on my right. I am taking you to court. By the time you realize we cannot even manage the dresses that they put on. So the uniformity is actually to help us partly to even deal or manage the different social classes we have in the schools.
But
that when you enter the school environment today, okay.
You mentioned uniformity. So what do you say to those who ask the question that the deeper inequality is not lying in the appearance of the students. It is lying in access to resources and opportunity of the student, not necessarily the appearance. The appearance may contribute just a very little part of the idea of inequality of the students. There are students who may have, all of them have shorter hairs, but if you enter the dormitories, you enter the classrooms, you will know that the class is not uniform based on the social construct we're all talking about.
Yes, so this is the point. When I go to Yasantua Girls today, and I'm mentioning the school because that's where the girl under the discussion is coming from. When you enter the school environment today, the rich and the poor, the Christian and the Muslim, they all have access to all the school resources. So in terms of the schooling, there are no discriminations. I mean, nobody has access to particular resources in the school that other students do not. Same for all the other schools. If you are talking of access in terms of general access as in rural, urban, and other forms of access, then that becomes another whole discussion on access to education in Ghana. But if you are looking at access in terms of the particular schools our children are, then I can tell you, if you go to Infantopen right now, all the boys have access to all the resources in the school, regardless of the backgrounds they are coming from, regardless of the beliefs they have. When you go to Achimota today, all the students in Achimota, they have access to all the resources in the school, access to the teachers, access to the science computer laboratories, access to the dormitories and all that. So when you pick the access school by school, then I can assure you 100% that all our students who have been enrolled now have equal access to the school resources like all other students. But if we are going to look at access broadly, as in access to education in Ghana, then of course I would agree with you that some schools are more resourced than others. In fact, that's the more reason we even have the category A, category B, and category C and all that. So we can look at access holistically and have a conversation around that. And you know, let me even add this too, because I have monitored that it has become one of the serious conversations that people believe, oh, when you go to America, for example, the students come to school with different forms of hair and they are still doing well, right? When you go to Europe, the students sing and they do well.
Even in private schools in Ghana.
Yes. And so, now, this is the point. When you go to these countries, these advanced countries, over 90% of their high school students are day students. Are we ready for that conversation? If we want a majority of our students to be day students, like the countries we are busily citing, then we should tell the minister. The minister, we want our children to braid their hair. But we have seen that the countries who encourage the braiding of the hair, 90% of the students are day students. So going forward, the computer placement place 90% of the students in day school so that they can braid their hair. It is a conversation you can raise with the minister. But in Ghana here, over 80% of our students are boarders. So you could see that contextually, our contexts are quite different, and so telling us to impose or directly transplant the quota in those countries here, we may have to be quite modest in how we want to quickly adopt those cultures. If we want to adopt them, we don't have a problem, but I'm only sounding the question that in those countries, 90% of the students are day students. Do we want that one too? If yes, then no problem. Again, let me indicate that some people are also saying, oh, it is colonialism. These are colonial things. And so we are now in the modern world, and so we should allow the children. I agree it is colonialism, but so is the formal education system. We inherited that from the whites. The court and parliamentary system we run, we inherited that. Christianity, we inherited that. Should we scrap it because we inherited? So the fact that your history is not enough grounds to scrap something. You may want to sit, analyze, look at it well, look at the negative sides or the downsides, and adjust here and there. But you don't say that, oh, because we inherited parliamentary system from the whites, or because formal education is an inheritance from the white, we should scrap formal education. It doesn't work like that. And so I appeal to the public that are quick to say that, oh, these are colonial inheritances, to look at it holistically, that are we sure we have really discarded all, or we want to really discard all colonial inheritances? Then let's start from formal education system itself as a whole. Let's start it first. Then when we are done, we look at parliamentary and the others. Again, let me end with this one.
Sure.
Some are also saying that, because it is practiced elsewhere in some countries, we should adopt it. So on one breath, they are saying this haircut thing is colonial. But on another breath, they are also saying that because it is practiced in those countries, we should adopt it, right? Is that not also colonial in thinking? If you are seeing it in America or you are seeing it in the UK, so you want us to practice it here, is that not also a colonial thinking that the fact that a white person is doing it, you want us to also do it? And so let's balance the conversation well. Other than that, we may throw away the more important issues and rather focus on these minor ones.
So yes. the conversation, and I'll still get back to you, Dr. Anti, and then Mr. Covey. So please bear with me just for a minute. The conversation, Mr. Fenyi, is moving away from, the link between the student appearance or the student looks and the student's academic excellence. Is that the case now?
If we have observed communications from GES very well, we do not even link the appearance or the hair to academic performance, because in fact and in reality, there are people who have braided their hair or would want to braid their hair and they perform well academically too. And so we don't even believe, as Ghana Education Service, our argument does not stem from the fact that if they braid their hair, they will not perform well. If that is even our argument, then the unique case of Tyrone Magai from Achimota would even dismantle that argument, because this is a guy who kept the dread and so performed exceptionally well even in the WASI and then in this international examination, and now he's doing very well outside the country.
Yeah, but let's remember that Tyrone Magai he faced a lot of obstruction in his case.
Of course. So I'm using him to buttress the point that Ghana Education Service, our argument is not even that when the children keep their hair, the academic performance will be affected necessarily. That's not where we're arguing from. Our argument is that the education we give our children is not only for the WASI result that they get. The education goes beyond that. Our argument is that we are training people students for the world of work. And the world of work is governed by rules and regulations, right? So, I give you an example. If you yourself, right, with where you work, because of where you work, in fact, because of the profession you find yourself, you would agree with me that there are certain places you may not be able to go again. There are certain things you may not be able to say. Probably there are certain dresses you may not even be able to put them on, not because you don't like them, but because the ethics of your profession frowns upon that. And the interesting part is that you don't see it as you are attacked or you are victimized, because you understand the logic behind these regulations. Unfortunately for our students, I believe that for some of them, the explanation maybe have not gone to them well. So they see themselves as victims of these regulations. But they are not victims. In fact, this young lady who has cut the hair, and it has become a topic for discussion, tell her that if she has a big brother who has a very nice beard, right, and the big brother wants to enter the military, they will ask the big brother to cut off all those beards, because in the military space, they may not want to encourage that. If this girl herself, even after school, want to get into the nursing profession, they will tell her to remove her expensive dress and put on a uniform. So the fact that GES is governed by some regulations, it's not odd, it's not weird, it's not out of the space. In fact, even if you move out of school and you enter the world of work, you will still have some rules and regulations. For example, you can be Cristiano Ronaldo, right? You can have all the money in the world. You can buy whatever you want to buy. But when it is time for you to go on the field and play, you cannot put on your wedding ring. You cannot put on any expensive gold ring, because you are not allowed to enter the field with anything metal. And it is not to victimize you. It is actually to protect the other players so that they don't get any cut from the metal you are putting on.
Right.
And it is from this logic and it is from this background that we believe that our schools have to be regulated some way, somehow. I think the missing link here is that for a lot of our young learners, and it is understandable, they are quite young, they think they are being victimized because of the application of these regulations. But for us as adults, right, when we go to our world of work and we are also regulated, we don't see that we are victimized because we get to understand the logic behind these regulations. So I feel maybe going forward, for example, this girl who cut the hair, maybe the school may want to explain to her why she has to cut the hair so that she doesn't end up crying, but rather get to understand the logic behind the cutting of the hair, and she will beautifully embrace this regulation. Yes.
Zafenyi, thank you. But please hold on for me, and let me get back to you, Dr. Anti, if you're still with me. So, you've listened to the reasons from Daniel Fenn. He's the head of the public relations unit of the GS, and I'm sure this is something you completely agree with, don't you?
Yes, I wasn't expecting anything different. I think he appreciates the issues, and then he's put it in a well understandable manner. I hope that we will have enough time to also discuss more important things going forward, so that we can bring him back and then talk about classrooms without desks and resources, teachers in 2 teachers taking care of a whole primary section of a school. You see, there are so many things that are happening in the sector that we would really need to engage him on and get his views and get the views of GES on. So I don't have anything to add. I think he said perfectly what the position of GES is, and I 100% agree to that.
Right. Please don't go away yet. There's another conversation we're having this morning, and that has to do with using the local languages to teach in the schools. But let me get your final thoughts on this, Mr. Covey, on the entire conversation we're having. So based on the different positions or the different thinking of the affected students, the parents, the positions of the school, and the entire need for discipline, uniformity amongst others, it's good that academic excellence is not being linked to the appearance right now. But based on the positions that the various stakeholders are holding right now, where do we go from here? What's the future looking like if this thing is to happen again?
Yeah, so I'm very happy that we're having this conversation again, just to lay emphasis on the fact that every school, that's we keep saying, have their own rules and regulations. They have their cultural identity that they relate to, that they are proud of. And so whoever have people been in that particular school, those are some of the things that they pride themselves with. And so it will go down there that if I want to go to a particular school, I have to buy the uniform, or I have to be provided the uniform, remove all other dresses that are functionable dresses that happen, and wear the uniform that the school prescribe. I have to eat what they prepare in the dining hall. I have to do whatever the rules are. I have to go by it. So before you enter a particular school, during the registration process, the parents and the students themselves are given rules and regulations. You complete it and you sign, and your parents also append their signature to it that I'm ready to go by the rules of this particular school, if I do not like the rules and regulations, because you read it in advance, you try to understand what it means before you sign. So once you sign, it means that you want to go by them. So you don't sign that code of conduct meant for students within that particular school, and then after signing, you say, even though I've signed, but I want to do things my way. No, it doesn't work that way in the distance. So, like others have said, the conversation should rather be how do we improve on the teaching and learning environment. For example, this morning when I was coming, I have 2 calls that I should make an appeal. One is Opan MA Basic School in the Gan West municipality. If the MC is listening, there's a problem there. Earlier this year, the rainstorm ripped off the KG block. It was a makeshift structure that these 4-year-olds were learning in. And since then, the MP and other people came to look at the place, and till now, nothing has been done about it. The children were packed in a staff common room, which is not well ventilated. And so basically, we are abusing their right in terms of access to conducive learning environment. And then also, my holy village, they also have a serious infrastructure challenge there. Okay. So if the MC, their local government have a responsibility to use part of the Assembly's common fund to this. And then I understand the KG, Amajikope, they don't have a KG teacher. And so the municipal director for Ketu South should do something about it. Okay. So these are the conversations that we should be having.
we'll get into them. But Dr. Pate, if you're still with me, if this issue comes up again in the near future, when we finish dealing with this lady goes to Yasantwa, and then in the next academic year, there's another student somewhere, in the subsequent academic years, another student has another reason. Are we able to finally deal with it, that when it comes up, we have reference that so and so is the practice, so we should not even entertain the thought of you wanting to do something different?
If this issue comes up next year, and it's not about somebody's religion, and the school is insisting that what the parents signed on to, they should abide by, we will not give it any oxygen. We will not discuss it. We will not give it the airtime. We will not make it a public issue. We will not precious radio time to discuss this. The parents should, if they think that there is a right that has been infringed on, should move to the Ghanaian court and let the court decide. I think we should. We should get this poster so that we don't always come back to issues that are settled. You got admission. You were given a prospectus, rules and regulations. You signed on to, and then you get to the school and you want to put up a different thing. No, we don't do that. So if it happens next year and it is not someone's haircut that is linked to religion and that the school is preventing him or her, but it's just one of these ordinary issues, then we will not give it the oxygen that this one has gotten.
Dr. Pate, thank you. But before you leave us, touch on this for me, that Ghanaian schools should prioritize mother tongue instruction. This is not the first time this is coming up in our conversations, but there's always a challenge with it. Can we ever do this properly? And what are the bottlenecks we need to overcome?
You see, this issue as far back as, I think, 2021, we did a paper on it. This issue of language policy, L1 and L2.
Exactly,
and all
yeah.
that. You see, in implementing some of that's why sometimes I have problem with our policymakers. You don't just get up and say that this is what the position is and therefore everybody should abide. How do we abide by this? So about 3 or 4 years ago, I went to do teaching practice supervision, and those of us who are in education understand this. And in the school in the western region, I think it's Nyamibeche village, I met a teacher who was transferred to the school from the north, and the only language the teacher can speak is English. Of course, he could speak language from the north that he's coming from.
Yeah.
And the students there speak a certain kind of a Hunter language in the western region, and the student and the teacher cannot speak the Hunter language. The students still do not understand the English. So if you are in the shoes of this teacher, what will you do?
How will you communicate?
Do you know what they were doing? When the teacher is teaching, one teacher will have to leave his class, come to this class 3, and then be explaining the thing in the language that the students would understand.
Be interpreting or translating.
Exactly.
And a lot of things will be lost.
Is disadvantaged. You see, that's why I'm saying that you don't just get up and just give out a policy direction and say that you should abide by. How do you handle this situation? So for me, what I think we need to do is to have a balanced kind of system, because we cannot have teachers teaching in various communities that they understand the language. There will be definitely an overlap. How do we deal with this? So you can have a mix of the English language with the local language, so that where the students understand the English language, the teacher can use it. And then where the students understand the local language, the teacher can use it. But don't say that everybody should start teaching in the local language. It doesn't work that way.
Dr. Pate, thank you. There's a question coming in that I should ask the GES, but I don't know if Mr. Fengi is still with me. Mr. Fengi, are you with me? Unfortunately, we lost Mr. Fengi. Dr. Pate too, unfortunately, has left us. We'll try and reconnect with Mr. Fengi, the PRO of the Ghana Education Service. Just a particular question that GES is regulating education in Ghana. So why don't they apply these same concerns to the private schools? GES is not only regulating education in the public schools. I don't know whether, Mr. Covey, you would want to take this, the concerns that GES is raising, but they are regulating education in the private school as well, but we are not seeing it happening in the private school. What's the marriage like?
So when we look at the dynamics between public and private, the private sector is being managed by somebody who pays the teachers, who provide his or her own resources, and they are there for business, purely business.
Yeah, but they're being regulated.
Yeah, they're being regulated.
They're not doing anything outside the laws.
GES only looks mostly at the curriculum delivery in terms of who is teaching there and what's the pedigree of the particular the teacher that they employ there. And so there's a regulation on the number of professional teachers.
There's regulation on curriculum, behavior of the students and of the teachers as well.
Good. So they also go by the general the code of discipline in the schools. But when it comes to appearance, over there's a business kind of dynamics. So a parent will come and say, I have my money, I'm paying school fees, I feel like this is how my child should dress. If you say, no, I'm taking my child from the school.
There's a leeway there, there's an opening there.
Exactly, that's where the challenge is. So if you want to enforce that, meaning they are going to lose their clients, that are the students. And so because of that, when it comes to dressing or appearance in private schools, GES is somehow constrained to try to insist on certain standards over there. But then when it comes to academic work and other things, purely they are regulated by GES, they are regulated by National Schools Inspectorate Authority and other regulatory bodies. But when it comes to appearance, it's like there's a choice over there. It's not like a free education where you come, everything the state is providing, and the state says, this is how I want my people to look like. But over here, you are paying for everything. And so you may not have that level of authority to insist on certain things. If you do so as a private school, the parents will remove their children from the school and you may lose your business. So that's where the difference is. So as you said, something can still be done about it. But that also means that GES must go beyond leaving room for certain different like
okay. Good news. I've been joined again by Mr. Fengi. Mr. Fengi, thank you so much. I have this maybe two questions to ask you, and then we will be able to say goodbye to you so you can continue with your morning. You're regulating the entire education structure in Ghana. But the concerns you're raising, they apply only to the public schools, to a lot of people's understanding. Why does it not translate to what happens in the private schools?
All right. So let me begin from this angle that when it gets to the private schools, the conversation becomes a little different, right?
How different?
Indeed, we are expecting them to use our curriculum because, of course, they write a BEC, they write a WASI with us. And so they are expected to live within the curriculum. That is one. They are also expected to live within the general rules and regulations and the conduct expected of them here in Ghana. So, for example, whether you are in private or not, you cannot steal, you cannot fight, you cannot conduct yourself in certain manners that go otherwise the laws we have. However, we are also quite modest. In fact, when it gets to the deeper levels of regulation, we are even looking at NASIA, that is the National Schools Inspectorate Authority, even than the Ghana Education Service. They more regulate the conduct of these schools. But I want to believe that when it gets to some of these issues about hairstyle, school uniform, appearances of students at the private school, I think the Ghana Education Service, which predominantly manages the public school systems, we do not become that strong in that area. And in fact, even when it gets to the regulation, it is the National School Inspectorate Authority that regulates them. So they are under their mandate. So the Ghana Education Service, I would say, is not a regulatory body for the private institutions. Only that we expect that when it comes to the use of
you are a regulatory body for education, not necessarily private school and public schools. Granted that they are in the system, private and public schools. But if you're not able to, if your mandate, like you're explaining, is not properly reaching the private schools, then which other areas in the private schools are you not able to influence properly?
Yeah, so what we are saying is that, one, because they work with our curriculum and they work with, in fact, our textbooks, and of course, they write our examinations, i.e., CC and WASI and all other, many other examinations that we write. We expect them to live within the confines of those requirements, right? And so you don't expect them to do anything that goes outside of the regulations that qualifies them to be able to write the DEC, or that qualifies them to be able to write the WASI, or that qualifies them to operate in Ghana here. However, when it comes to the school uniform that they put on, when it comes to the hairstyle they put on, when it comes to the shoes they wear, when it comes to, these things we consider peripheral, the Ghana Education Service to not go in to dictate to them what uniform to wear, what hairstyle to put on, what shoes to put on, and all that.
If you're calling them peripheral now, because they are, when it comes to the conversation in relation to the private school, then it means, does it not suggest that it is not much of a big deal, in fact, for the entire conversation itself, even whether it's a public school or it's a private school? Because for private schools, it is an appendage, it is an auxiliary, a peripheral conversation.
In fact, even in the public sector, it's not a big deal. So, let me give you an example. Currently, there are about 600,000 students, first-year students. Is it not only one girl we are discussing? And so, it is actually not a big deal at all. Our learners understand that when you are going to school, there's uniformity. Part of the uniformity is that our hair, we don't expect any flamboyance in our hair. We don't expect any colors in our hair, because the main focus of being in school is character formation and an academic business. So these are the major focuses, the character formation and the academic business. Those are the important things. In terms of the hair, as I said, there are about 600,000 learners who are entering school or who entered school last week. It's not only one girl we are discussing. So yes, it is actually peripheral. It's not a major focus for the Ghana Education Service. For us, it is how our learners can be molded to suit or fit the world of work. That's the most important thing for us. Number two, it is how our learners can be taught to have their intellect groomed, have their intellect very rigorous, so that they can debate, they can argue, they can make cases, they can fit into the global stage. Those are the main focuses. Of course, as I earlier mentioned, for Ghana Education Service, and as Dr. Pitante also mentioned, that at this moment we are even discussing the curriculum. We are discussing textbooks. There are schools that have issues with teacher distribution and teacher rationalization and all that. These are the conversations we are having, not the hairstyles of the students. I mean, that is purely a peripheral issue.
Great.
Yes.
Daniel Feng, you don't go, but you spoke about better things to discuss, and then I mean, although there are a lot of questions to ask about this, but let's park that conversation and talk about this. You know that the minister is urging us to use mother tongue instruction in schools. For the GS, what role do you play in this? Because this is not the first time the conversation is happening. Since 2021, we need to do this, but there's always the challenge about some lack of communication here and there. What role does GS play in this?
All right, so let me begin from this angle. Generally, Ghana Education Service is an implementation body, and the ministry is a policy body. So the policies that the ministry formulates, of course, they do that in consultation or engagement with the agencies under them. And one of the agencies is the Ghana Education Service. We are an implementation agency. That means that the ministry will tell you, Ghana Education Service, go and do this. Then we will come and sit down and look at what resources do we need, what people do we need, what avenues do we need, what time do we need. We will come in and now formulate or look at all those things that are required for the implementation.
So why has it not been possible yet?
It has not been possible because the past ministries did not have this orientation or that our medium of instruction should be 100% Ghanaian language. They did not have this orientation. In fact, if you could remember, the conversation about using 100% Ghanaian language came up during the first term of this administration. So anytime there's a conversation about 100% use of our local language for instruction, it has been under this administration, i.e. the NDC government, right? So it appears it is the NDC that has this school of thought that our learners should be trained in the local language. And it stems from very fundamental backgrounds. Number one is that we believe that when students are taught, and there are a lot of studies to show this, that when students are taught or they learn in the language they understand, the language they use in the house, the language they are born with, they better understand those concepts than thinking or writing or communicating in another person's language, right? If you are to think in another person's language or another country's language, sometimes it gets difficult. But when you are thinking in your own language, when you are writing in your own language, when you are assessing in your own language, then you are better able to understand and appreciate things well, especially at the very early grade level where anytime they go to the house, they speak the local language with their parents, with their siblings, in the environment, in the community. The boys, when they go out to play football, they communicate in the local language. All of a sudden, once they get to the school environment, they are to switch to some English language. And sometimes, if you are not careful, you are teaching, as a teacher, you are teaching some very important concept. But because you are communicating it in somebody's language, it gets difficult for them to understand. Meanwhile, if you are to explain it in their local language, let me give you an example. If you are teaching a child 1 + 1 or 2 + 2 in their local language, I tell you, they will better understand it easier compared with when you are teaching it in another person's language. So that's the first background. The second background is that if you have observed majority of the developed countries, you would notice that most of them use their local languages to teach or as mediums of instruction. Go to China, go to Germany, go to Italy, go to France, go to US, go to UK. You would notice that they largely use the local language as medium of instruction. In fact, they teach English as a subject, but when it comes to the medium of instruction, it is normally the English, the local language. And we don't want to believe it is mere coincidence that these countries are first world countries. And so if there's a lesson to be picked or 1 or 2 lessons to be learned from these advanced countries, especially as a developing country that looks up to these advanced countries, then we believe this is one of the practices you may want to consider, that is using the local language as medium of instruction, just as China is doing, just as Italy is doing, just as France is doing, or America and the UK, they are doing. Maybe this is one of the lessons you may want to take from there, contextualize it very well to suit your local or your educational system, and then you are good to go.
But when it comes to the implementation of this policy decision, like you're mentioning, why is it likely to be a challenge beyond the fact that you're saying it is the NDC who is championing this? So since it has been made known now, what steps is the GS going to take? There's a concern that wrong teachers are taken to wrong districts, hence they cannot communicate using the local languages of the indigens in the various schools. What steps will the GS taking making this happen properly?
But let me first admit that yes, there's a huge challenge, and the huge challenge is not only about even the posting of the teachers, right? The challenge is actually that by our culture, our classrooms are very heterogeneous in nature. The average Ghanaian classroom is very heterogeneous. I give you an example. If you walk into any classroom today, right, as a teacher, you are likely to find about 40 students in that classroom or 50 students in that classroom. Out of this number, some of them are Gan, some of them are Fancy, some of them are Ever, some of them are Guan, some of them are, very heterogeneous.
So what language are you going to use?
Of course, that is the more challenge, not even the posting, because after all, how many teachers can you post at a time? Maybe you have posted one teacher to this classroom, and this class is very heterogeneous. How are you going to manage it? And so that's the first level of challenge. And I think this challenge is not a problem of Ghana Education Service. It's actually a culture issue. I won't even call it a culture problem, because the unity with which we live together is also very admirable, that we can have Gans, Guans, Evers, Fancies, all of them together in one classroom peacefully. That is a very positive quality that we have. And so I believe the heterogeneous nature goes beyond the Ghana Education Service, but it is a challenge we are faced with. What we do normally is that we adopt the predominant language of the environment. I give you an example. You are in the Volta region. You are in Ho. You walk into a classroom. This class has some students who are Gan, Fancy, Ever, and Nzema and all that. However, the environment, the school society, the community, it is Ever that they speak. You may want to adopt Ever in that in that classroom, because this is an Ever environment as well. So normally, what we do in an attempt to address this heterogeneous issue is that we try to use the dominant local language in the community.
Doesn't that go to the disadvantage of the lesser groups, of the disadvantaged groups in the class in this context?
Yes. However, our thinking also is that when you go to the classroom, right, of course, as I mentioned, it is a heterogeneous class already. No matter the language you would adopt, you will find one or two students who may not be able to understand that local language. But as a teacher who has been trained in pedagogy, who knows how your teaching methodology should be, you are still able to address these disadvantaged minority group, as you rightly said. So, for example, you go to a classroom, I'm moving away from language, let's pick science or mathematics. You go to the classroom, a lot of your students are very good. They have gotten a particular topic. But there's a minority group who don't understand the topic you are teaching. As a teacher, what will you do? Obviously, that goes into your training, right? The pedagogy, methodologies, approaches to adopt and all that. That goes into your training. So we expect that a professional teacher would be able to manage such situations. That's why earlier I indicated that the problem is not even about the postings of the teacher, because no matter what, you cannot get the postings correct or perfectly, because the classroom is heterogeneous. So let's rather hang the conversation around the heterogeneity of the Ghanaian classroom and how best we can manage this heterogeneity. It is not a weakness, actually. Our ability to live peacefully together in one common room is a strength. But how do we harness or manage this strength so that it doesn't end up as a weakness for our education system?
So clearly, we'll need some increase in stakeholder engagement so that we'll be able to find a way to do this. That although the class is heterogeneous, the lesser dominant language groups will also be able to benefit from the teaching and learning. Thank you so much, Mr. Fenyi. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Daniel Fenyi is the GS Public Relations, head of the Public Relations Unit of the Ghana Education Service, speaking with us there. Let me wrap up with you, Mr. Covey, on this conversation. So GS there's a lot of challenge. He mentioned two of them, the diverse nature of the classrooms that we have in the country, various people from various backgrounds, various language orientation, one teacher who may be comfortable with maybe 3 languages, but there's the few students who do not speak any of the languages that the teacher is used to. How do we solve this problem, and how are we able to ensure that we use local languages in our schools to educate the learners better?
Yeah, so when we look at the current system that we are running, we have a language policy when it comes to teaching and learning.
Right.
So the early childhood level, that is from KG to class 3, they are to be taught in the local language, and then the English is taught as a subject. That's the current policy. And then when they move to class 4, that's the upper primary, and then the junior high schools, and then down to senior high schools. Then the medium of communication in the classroom is the English, and then the Ghanaian language is taught as a subject. So I don't know, there are some questions that probably we want to seek clarification as far as this conversation is concerned, as to whether the minister in this particular instance wants all schools from KG to senior high school to be taught in the local language. If that is a conversation, or that is his directive, then I think the directing Ghana Education Service to implement it immediately is out of place, if I should use it.
Because we need to overcome the challenges first.
Very good. It's out of place because, when we teach them, one of the issues we need to know that after teaching them social studies in Ewe, mathematics in Ewe.
I'm an Nzima guy in the Volta region. How do you teach me social studies in Ewe?
Even that is also another, where I'm coming from. After that, there is something, are they going to write it in Ewe?
Or they're going to write it in English.
Or they are going to write it in English.
Imagine writing 1 plus 1.
Social studies.
Write 1 plus 1 in Ewe.
Very good. Social studies paper, are they going to write it in Ewe?
Yeah.
The science paper, are they going to write it in Ewe? The how do you call it? Religious and moral education. So these are the distance. So, but if they are going to write these papers in English, then the current language policy we have will do for everybody. That
it should be taught. The lesson should be taught in English.
They still learn their local language as a subject.
Yes.
And they should be able to write it as a subject.
But the instruction module language.
The instruction module should use a common language that favors every child in the classroom. What we've not been able to do very well, and that is what is probably bringing some of this conversation, is that, when it comes to teaching and learning, the foundational level, it's 0 to 10. Those are the most critical stages of the child. The formative years. That the child picks a lot of things. If you miss that stage, the child carries a burden. That becomes difficult because they would now take an entrenched position. The bad character is formed. Reversing that character becomes very difficult because it's not an intrinsic character that the child built and well ingrained in their system, and it becomes difficult for you because they will not see any reason why they should move away from what they are comfortable with to what they are not comfortable with. So that is one of the conversations that over the years we have always said that the early childhood level should be, the investment should be there, more over there, so that the child is exposed to a variety of disciplines. And so the teachers at that level, if it's language that we want to enforce, we have every resource that is available in the school. Right. The teachers that are teaching there are well trained in that particular for early childhood education, and they have the psychology of the learner at that distance, well versed in the psychology of the learner at that level, to be able to embed in them that policy of being able to read and write in the local language, in the English language. And so when they move up, they can still be fluent in their local language, they can still be fluent in the foreign language. It is not for any reason why Ghana, we adopted English as our official language. Just as the PRO said himself, and then my brother, Mr. Anti also, Dr. Anti also said earlier on, we can count over 46 different languages. Even within the particular ethnic group, they have dialects.
A lot of them.
And they have their way of mentioning certain things. So we need to have a middle point, and the middle point is where we have the English language that everybody is comfortable with. So some people may have difficulty acquiring it, but that is because the foundation was not well built. And so we should pay attention to building the foundation of the learner, so that they acquire these basic things right away, and then when they move up,
then it will not even matter what language they are taught in.
Yes, they can be taught in German, they will still cope with it, any language. But then if we leave the primary schools in the current sorry states they are in, and then we hope that when
the level of education
is totally neglected, and then the infrastructure, the facility, the resources, the only thing that identify the place as a school is a furniture, which is not even in a good condition, and then a classroom block, which may not even be up to today.
In which cases are non-existent.
Yes. Some are learning under trees, and all this definitely doesn't create the environment for acquisition of some of these things, and then even teacher deployment at that level. The way we do postings in the various schools, some people are teaching subjects that is not what they were trained in, because they have to fill in the gap.
Right.
And so these are some of the bottlenecks that we need to address. Otherwise, we want to say local language is perfect, but then
there's a lot of challenge we need to overcome.
That we need to overcome before.
Mr. Richard Kwashikove, thank you so much. You're the Executive Director of the Campaign Against Commercialization and Privatization of Education in Ghana. We've also been speaking with Dr. Peter Pate Anti, the Executive Director of the Institute of Education Studies, IFEST in Ghana. We also had the Public Relations Head of the Ghana Education Service.